In a courtroom where justice was supposed to be blind, one corrupt judge crossed the line and paid the ultimate price. This is the shocking true story of how Jasmine Crockett stood her ground against tyranny, only for the tables to turn in an explosive twist no one saw coming. Jasmine Crockett wasn't just any lawyer, she was a fighter who believed in fairness and truth. But on this day, she walked into a courtroom that felt more like a lion's den than a place of justice. The air was tense as Judge Richard Holloway, a man known for his sharp tongue and questionable rulings, sat high above everyone else, glaring down at those unfortunate enough to appear before him. Jasmine had prepared tirelessly for this case. Her client, a single mother named Lisa, was fighting to keep custody of her two young children after being falsely accused of neglect. It should have been straightforward. Evidence showed Lisa was innocent. But something about Judge Holloway made Jasmine uneasy. Word around town was that he didn't care about facts, he cared about power. And today, Jasmine would find out just how far he'd go to protect it. As soon as Jasmine began presenting her argument, things took a dark turn. Judge Holloway interrupted her mid-sentence, his voice dripping with disdain. "Miss Crockett," he sneered, "perhaps you'd do better sticking to simpler cases. This isn't law school anymore." Gasps echoed through the room. No one spoke to Jasmine like that, not without consequences. But Judge Holloway wasn't done. He mocked her credentials, questioned her competence, and even went so far as to accuse her of wasting the court's time. Every word hit like a hammer, but Jasmine refused to back down. Instead, she stood taller, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. "Your Honor," she said firmly, "I'm here to ensure my client gets a fair trial. That's all." The tension in the room was palpable. People shifted uncomfortably in their seats, unsure whether they were witnessing a miscarriage of justice or the beginning of something much bigger. What happened next would change everything. For Jasmine, for Judge Holloway, and for the entire legal system. Judge Holloway leaned back in his chair, a smug smile playing on his lips. He thought he'd won, that Jasmine would crumble under the weight of his insults. But instead she did something unexpected. She pulled out a folder from her briefcase and placed it gently on the table. "Your Honor," she began, her tone calm but laced with steel, "before we proceed further, I'd like to submit some additional evidence." The judge frowned, clearly irritated. "What kind of evidence?" he snapped. Jasmine didn't flinch. "Evidence that might shed light not only on this case, but also on certain irregularities within your courtroom." A murmur rippled through the gallery. Irregularities. What was Jasmine talking about? Even Lisa, sitting nervously beside her, looked confused. Judge Holloway's face darkened. "Miss Crockett, if this is another one of your stunts." "It's not a stunt, Your Honor," Jasmine interrupted, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. She opened the folder and held up a document for everyone to see. "This is a record of payments made to offshore accounts linked directly to you. Payments originating from individuals involved in cases over which you presided." The room erupted into chaos. Reporters scrambled for their notebooks, spectators whispered furiously among themselves, and Judge Holloway turned beet red. "That's outrageous," he bellowed, slamming his gavel so hard it nearly broke. "I demand an explanation for these baseless accusations." But Jasmine wasn't finished. "These aren't baseless, Your Honor. They're part of an ongoing investigation by federal authorities. In fact, there's more." She reached into her bag again and produced a flash drive. Videos, emails, and audio recordings, all implicating you in corruption and abuse of power. For a moment, silence fell over the courtroom. Everyone stared at Judge Holloway, waiting for him to deny it, to explain it away. But he didn't. His eyes darted around the room, panicked, as sweat trickled down his forehead. For the first time, the mighty judge looked small, vulnerable. Then, in a desperate attempt to regain control, he pointed a trembling finger at Jasmine. "You think you can destroy me? You have no idea who you're dealing with." "Oh, I think I do," Jasmine replied coolly. "And so will everyone else once this information becomes public." Just then, the doors to the courtroom burst open. Two men in suits walked in, their badges gleaming under the fluorescent lights. One of them stepped forward and addressed the judge. "Richard Holloway, you're under arrest for bribery, extortion, and obstruction of justice." The crowd gasped as the officers approached the bench. Judge Holloway tried to protest, but his words were drowned out by the commotion. As they led him away in handcuffs, Jasmine stood silently, watching the scene unfold. Justice had finally caught up with him, but the fight wasn't over yet. As Judge Holloway was dragged out of the courtroom, the room erupted into a frenzy. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, and whispers filled the air like static electricity. But amidst the chaos, Jasmine remained still, her expression unreadable. She had done what many thought was impossible, exposing one of the most powerful figures in the legal system. Yet, as the initial shock wore off, reality began to sink in. Lisa, her client, approached her cautiously. "Jasmine, is it over?" she asked, tears streaming down her face. Jasmine hesitated before answering. "For now, yes. Your case will be reassigned to a new judge, and we'll make sure you get the fair trial you deserve." But Lisa wasn't convinced. "And what about you? What happens to you now? People like him, they don't go down without a fight." Jasmine forced a smile, though her mind was racing. Lisa was right. Taking down someone like Judge Holloway wouldn't come without consequences. Powerful people didn't operate alone, and Jasmine knew she'd stirred up a hornet's nest. Still, she couldn't let fear dictate her next move. Later that evening, as Jasmine packed up her office, she noticed something unusual. An envelope slipped under her door. Her heart skipped a beat as she picked it up and opened it carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper, with just 3 words scrawled across it. "Watch your back." Her hands trembled slightly as she set the note down. Whoever had sent it wasn't playing games. This wasn't just a warning, it was a threat. And yet, despite the danger lurking in the shadows, Jasmine felt a strange sense of resolve. If anything, this only strengthened her determination to keep fighting. The next morning, news outlets were ablaze with headlines about Judge Holloway's arrest. The story spread like wildfire, sparking outrage and calls for reform within the judicial system. Some praised Jasmine as a hero, others dismissed her as reckless. But behind closed doors, whispers circulated about who might have been working alongside Judge Holloway, and whether they'd already set their sights on silencing her. That afternoon, Jasmine received another visitor at her office. It was Detective Marcus Hale, the lead investigator on the case against Holloway. He closed the door behind him and took a seat across from her desk. "I need to talk to you," he said, his voice low and urgent. "About what?" Jasmine asked, though she already suspected the answer. "We found evidence linking Holloway to a larger network, a syndicate operating within the justice system. They've got judges, lawyers, even politicians on their payroll, and based on what we've uncovered so far," he paused, his eyes locking onto hers. "You're not safe." Jasmine swallowed hard but didn't look away. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you should consider going into protective custody until we can dismantle this operation. These people play dirty, Jasmine. You've seen what they're capable of." She shook her head firmly. "I can't run. Not now. If I do, they win. Besides, if there's anyone else involved, I need to know who they are. Who else has been manipulating the system? Who else has been hurting innocent people like Lisa?" Detective Hale sighed, clearly frustrated, but not entirely surprised by her response. "Just promise me one thing," he said finally. "Be careful, because whoever's pulling the strings won't stop until they've taken you out, or worse." With that, he stood and left, leaving Jasmine alone with her thoughts. She stared at the note on her desk again, those chilling words staring back at her. "Watch your back." Suddenly, her phone buzzed on the table. A text message appeared on the screen, sent from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have meddled. Now you'll pay the price." Jasmine's blood ran cold. Whoever was behind this wasn't bluffing, but as fear gripped her chest, so did something else: anger. Anger at the corruption, the lies, the injustice. She wouldn't let them win. Not now, not ever. But as she turned off the lights and locked her office door that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Somewhere out there, someone was waiting, watching, planning. And Jasmine had no idea how much deeper this conspiracy went, or how close she was to becoming its next victim. Did you see that twist coming? Let me know in the comments below. What do you think happens next? Will Jasmine uncover the full extent of the conspiracy, or will she become its latest casualty? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because trust me, you won't want to miss the next chapter in this explosive true crime saga.